right in the phone call, and it is heard live both on TikTok and on YouTube, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 1 o'clock or longer, depending. Um, and at the same time, it archives on all of the various stations that I go to. So just to give a quick thumbnail on my procedure here, because as I said, I've just joined here at YouTube. I'm Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I am live streaming on YouTube and on TikTok, where I am taking phone calls. You're welcome to join the program, 617-396-4958, 617-396-4958. Now, because of the purge that's going on right now and the censorship, I have tried to diversify this platform so that way this program, which you can join, will be downloaded and available if for some reason TikTok or YouTube we cancel the show. I go, God willing, I hope they don't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But if that does happen, then the program is heard and archived on Rumble and on Minds. And it's also downloaded as an audio on Podomatic, where it goes to iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, a bunch of other people. It's a pretty wide list there. So, I'm trying to broaden and deepen the market. I expect, by the way, later today to have the program also downloaded onto Gab as a way to sort of do my best to do a little whack-a-mole with the establishment that's trying to essentially, in my opinion, censor conservative thinking and conservative shows by just sort of, where they get me down on one spot, I'll pop up on another. So, if you're watching right now on YouTube or TikTok and you find that it's not there, you can go to any of these other venues, or you can just check out all of them on my website, which is charlesmoskowitz.com. So before we get into the issues of the day and before I set the table, as Jerry Williams used to say, let me give out the phone number again. It's an open lines program today. I don't have any guests lined up. I have guests lined up for Wednesday and Thursday, which I will announce at the appropriate time. But right now, I'm doing an open lines program. You're welcome to join that program by dialing 617-396-4958, 617-396-4958. What is on your mind this afternoon, huh? I think it was Bob Grant who used to say that in New York, a great talk show host. He's passed away. Bob Grant's actually a pretty interesting character. He was off the air for about 10 years, and then he made a comeback when he was already in his mid-90s. And I think he lasted for a couple of more years before, unfortunately, he passed away. There's something about talk radio. It's like a disease. It gets into your blood. You feel the need to make that connection. It's, one of the reasons personally why I'm doing it. So how are we to view the news of today? It's those of us who are deplorables, as I describe myself, and who admire and support President Donald J. Trump, as I do. He's under the kind of assault now that is much more open and much deeper and much more, vicious and much more dishonest, I would suggest, than he has been at any point since he stepped off that escalator with his wife in the summer of 2015 to announce his candidacy for president. That's when this whole avalanche of propaganda was launched. And now it's reaching an absolute crescendo to the point where I think for the first time, it really does bring into question our ability as a functioning republic to continue. It is that damaging. they're actually trying to impeach Donald Trump in his final week, assumedly his final week in office. That is, unless you believe some of the rumors out there, and I'm not going to go too far into that because I don't want to lose the show. A lot of anxiety here, losing sleep. Yeah, look, I mean, look, first of all, let me just, I'm going to say this bluntly. I happen to be a Jew, and I happen to have family members in a previous generation who were murdered in the Nazi Holocaust. And in that capacity, I was raised hearing stories about this, studying it, thinking about it. I've gone on and I've written 3 books that relate to this topic. One in particular is very explicitly into this. It's called Was Hitler a Leftist? And, the result is that I have tried to study in as dispassionate a way as I can the nature of Nazi socialism, which I compare to international socialism or communism. In fact, I see very little difference other than cosmetic differences. Both of them derive their authority from an elite gang of people who try to overthrow God in heaven and who believe that they're creating some kind of an earthly utopia. Now, I'm not saying that philosophically that's what's going on right now in this country, but we're pretty damn close to it in terms of the authoritarian side of it. I would argue that this election, I don't want to say use the S word or the F word because I'll get kicked off of Google. I mean, I'll kick Google for sure, but YouTube. Let's just say that it was not exactly on the up and up, in my opinion. I'm going to have a book published this week that gets into the details of that. And at that point, I will announce what, that book's availability, assuming I'm not censored there too. But I would argue that the election was corrupted. I think I can say that. And that I think that most Americans, unless you were born under a rock, they understand this, at least in their heart of hearts. And that this recent incident where 99.9999% of people came out in Washington, D.C. to engage in a peaceful protest, an expression of their constitutional right to express their opinion publicly and in solidarity with others of like mind, that this resulted in this breach, which I would suggest needs further investigation, that the subject itself is interesting and it ought to be investigated. But what's more interesting to me from a philosophical standpoint at this point is to take a look at the reaction to it, which reminds me, as someone who has studied Nazism and how it was enthroned, it reminds me of the reaction to the Reichstag fire. Now, let me just get into a quick little historical background of what that was. By the way, you're welcome to join the program, 617-396-4958, 617-396-4958. About 2 or 3 weeks after the Nazis came to power, there was a fire in the Reichstag. The Reichstag is the German parliament building. It's the equivalent of the US Capitol in Washington. It's the seat of the German government. It's where the German assembly would go to meet and debate and pass laws. And the Reichstag fire effectively shut down the Reichstag. And there were rumors at the time of who started the fire. But the official government line at that time was that it was started by this young communist. Nobody really knows who, what, why, where. It's never been completely determined. There have always been rumors that it was a kind of an inside job. Whether it was or not, the point is it was utilized in a way that benefited the powers that were in place. We the people got the official, we cannot lose our freedom. Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about right now. And the reaction to that was to create this atmosphere of fear and hysteria that there was about to be an overthrow of the government, and that the constitution basically of Germany was suspended. There was actually an article that had been put in place by President von Hindenburg of Germany before Hitler was elected that was triggered, and it was there as for such emergencies. That had been a response to the Kapp Putsch of 1920, where you had a clique of communists inside Berlin that included Rosa Luxemburg trying to overthrow the government. Okay, we do have a caller. And thank you for calling. Are you there? Let me just make sure my volumes are up. Let me just go right here. All right, there we are. Hello, you're on the air. Thank you.
Hi, man. You're kind of cute.
Oh, is this is a crank call? Please.
No, I'm saying.
Okay, never mind that. We're not here to comment on what I look like. Please, let's keep this community. Let's keep community standards up here. I am trusting people to make an honest phone call here and to do the right thing. If you're not going to do that, then I'm not going to be able to take calls. Please, let me just go to Skype and see if I can get back running here. Looks like I'm okay. Let me just, here we go, Skype. Anyway, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try again here with the phone calls. Please, let's keep things, on the up and up here. Again, I don't have a means, frankly, to screen calls. So if you're going to be not behaving properly, I'm going to get rid of you as quickly as I can, because I don't want to have, I don't want any problems. Okay, here we go. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, man. You didn't.
No, thank you. Please don't call again. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. Anyway, getting back to the Reichstag fire, the reaction was that the Nazi constitution was suspended. The Nazis consolidated power openly and nakedly. The media was seized, essentially. And by the way, I think that I'm not wrong to suggest that the Nazi government itself didn't seize the media. What happened, and in fact, the classic definition of a fascist regime, is not the total open public ownership of the media or of business or of communication. The definition is that the government works in partnership with alleged private entities that form part of the government. It becomes a partnership, and that these private entities essentially are given monopolistic powers. So, what happened then after the Reichstag fire is that accepted entities of media in Germany were able to take full monopolistic power and remove their competitors. Doesn't that sound familiar? I'm sorry, but to me, that's what I hear right now. That's what I see when I wake up and realize that Parler has been taken down for no reason. That, I look at this TikTok account, I see about a third of the people that are following me have had their accounts removed. I've been told that I've been shadow banned. I see that Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch has been banned from Twitter and I think YouTube, because he did a video maybe months ago in his archives that talked about a particular drug that I'm not going to mention by name that has been relatively effective in treating the COVID-19 virus in other countries. It begins with an H. We're not going to mention it because they'll take me out. The media has been lost to Americans for many years. Yeah, I have heard that CNN does want Fox off the air, and that you've got the removal of conservative thought, conservative opinion. The reason that they're doing this now, and the reason that they are colluding with each other to do it, apparently, is because they can get away with it, knowing that the Biden administration isn't going to do anything about it. They're not going to stop it. In fact, during the debates late last year, I think, or earlier this year, I recall Kamala Harris saying, very proudly, that Twitter, calling for Twitter and Facebook and other venues to remove President Donald Trump from their servers. And now they have done that. Now, do you really honestly think that the Biden-Harris administration is going to stand up for that? I honestly don't. So if that isn't the definition of fascism, I don't know what is. I mean, that's exactly what the Nazis did after the Reichstag fire. They basically allowed their monopolistic friends to stand up and wipe out their opponents. That's what they have now done to Parler. And I think that I don't even know if my program is still going to be on the air by the end of this broadcast. So, I don't really, here I am wondering and thinking, what can I and what can I not be allowed to say? Now, I get the fact that YouTube and these companies, and this has been impressed upon me, that they are private companies. So do they have a right to censor people? Do they charge me? No. Yes, technically they have a right to do it. However, we have in this country, and we have had in this country going back to 1890s, what's called antitrust legislation, the Clayton Antitrust Act. There have been other antitrust acts, which basically say that you cannot have any grouping of entities, whether it be selling flowers, whatever it is, they cannot come together and collude. Hello, you're on the air. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, hey, is Charles?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Like the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk for many, many years about people waking up. The whole idea that someday people are just going to see what's going on in this type of situation, and there's going to be some mass collective consciousness increase in awareness, and that's going to cause people in like Pelosi and this gang, who are obviously behaving atrociously regardless of your party affiliation. What are your thoughts historically? Because people have been writing about this for hundreds of years. And if you read a 100-year-old book, they're talking about this type of infiltration into the government, and they're thinking, well, all we need is one catalyzing event that'll wake the people up. So this is a very old subject. People who understand history know that people are never going to wake up. Do you think that people will ever just wake up?
Yes.
Is that moment going to happen?
Yes. I don't think it's going to necessarily be one big bang wake up. I think it's been a gradual wake up, if you will, that goes back centuries, if not millennia, in which we are gradually, as human beings, as images of God, we are becoming more conscious and more aware of who we are and of our place in the world. And that we have always had to confront this conspiracy by those who want to prevent that from happening. They want to hide from us the fact that we are sovereign citizens under God, and they want to hold themselves up as the replacement of God, and that they will rule from earth in the name of enlightenment. And that it's a gradual move. I mean, maybe it's what Theodore Parker, minister from my own hometown of Boston, talked about when he talked about the great arc of morality. We are becoming more aware as the millennia go on of what is good and what is evil. We now know that slavery is evil. We know that human sacrifice is evil. We have a better sense of the types of governments that allow for the promotion of individual rights, that those are good. And that we are confronting a conspiracy, and I do use the word conspiracy, to try to stop that by people who are in positions of great power and influence. I think that is what's going on right now.
Well, that's my point. These people are in power, in positions of great power and influence, because they have no fear at all of anybody coming to any of these realizations. No, like you said, we figured out that slavery was bad, but quickly came up with a corporate style system that essentially kind of does the same thing. So it's not like waking up to slavery has given everybody $30 an hour jobs. So I'm
we did come up.
They don't appear.
We did come up with a system. No, but we did come up with a system that re-implemented slavery. It's called communism. It's called Nazism. Yeah. And yes, look, you're right. These are very fierce forces that we are confronting. And I think that there are events that happen in history that basically expose the nature of this evil. This is one of our purposes of being alive. This is why we were created by God, to expose truths and evil and to make those things known to our fellow human beings as a way to advance freedom. We're never going to have perfect freedom. I mean, there's never going to be a utopia. This is only God has that. We don't know all. We can't know all things good and all things evil, but we can know a lot, and we have learned a lot. And I think that there are events in history where we have a chance to advance freedom. I believe that one of those events was the election of Donald J. Trump. I view him as a providential figure. And I think that that's why what he did was set off this beehive, almost like from the movie Exorcist. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I mean, with this, these thousands of insane bees. He poked the stick in the net in the hive, and it set them off. And now they're getting their pound of flesh. And I don't know. Look, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he's going to survive. I pray for him every day. But whether or not he comes out of this thing, we have to understand the movement that he did lead so brilliantly, and we have to advance it any way we can. Now, I don't know how that is. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to even be allowed to continue on the air after this show. But we have to, as individuals, find a way to not let them win. And that's what they've done. They have, I don't want to use the S word, but what they've done to the election.
Yeah.
And now they're consolidating that by nailing, trying to nail the coffin shut. And,
that's my point. They're getting away with it. In other words, Charles, if the last 100 years were a football game, at what point in time do we sit there and go, oh, don't worry, our team's going to go back in the locker room, they're going to figure this out, and then they're going to start connecting passes and improving their running game, and they're going to win this game. I mean, if Vegas were placing odds on this right now.
Well, I mean, maybe we're heading back to the locker room right now, but look, the bottom line is that what we can do right now today is simply expose to the best of our ability how dishonest this whole thing is. I mean, the lying has become so blatant. It's almost like right out of George Orwell. This idea that Trump caused an insurrection, a complete lie.
Well, that's to my point. When was 1984 written?
I think it was written in the 1940s. George Orwell wrote it after. This is one of his lessons from the Nazi thing. I mean, he was.
Okay, so in 1940, there were thousands of people. One of them wrote a book, but there were hundreds of thousands of people that were aware that this is an inevitable thing. So that's my point. And they're probably thinking, hey, if I write this book and people read it, that will wake people up.
And did.
Make them more vigilant.
It did wake people up. And it's not inevitable. Look, every generation from the time of Adam and Eve has to struggle with this conspiracy. This is just because it's a corrupted aspect of human nature. It seems like when people reach a level of power, oftentimes they have compromised their moral standards to get there. They can be blackmailed.
I get that, yeah.
And so they have a lot invested in preserving and advancing that power. Either that or they're mentally insane people who think that they somehow, like they're descending from Mount Sinai every day and they're teaching the rest of us how to live. And they have some divine right to do that. I mean, it's a combination of that. Both sides are evil. And they are not winning. they'll have their victories, they'll have their holocausts, they'll have their genocides, their forced starvations, their depressions, but in the bigger picture, they will not win. And to the point where we can stand up and identify them, we will win. I'll look to the Bible as a metaphor. The children of Israel, when you look at their history, once they entered the promised land under Joshua, when they believed in God, when they tried to walk the right path, their nation prospered. When they fell away from God and they started to engage in idol worship and other practices, their nation suffered and they became corrupted. And it was this tension between the good and evil and those influences that make up the entire narrative of the Bible. And that's exactly what we're looking at now.
Well, they're at a point right now where anybody that tries to go ahead, let's say just tonight, we all decided, hey, we're going to start living according to the laws of God and reverse this process. They have that figured out, Charles. It's not they don't wake up every day and go, geez, we have no game plan for if.
Oh, no, you're right. They have a long-term.
They got a game plan for that.
Oh, yeah, they have a long-term plan. They look at the thing over like 100-year periods. This is what Fabian socialism was all about. It recognized that Great Britain was not going to accept outright open socialism. I mean, you could look at Marx's manifesto. He says this in Article 9.
The Fabians they got the long-term game
plan.
You're long-term optimistic, and the Fabians are long-term, don't worry, we got this in the bag.
Well, we have to be counter-Fabians. I actually wrote a book called that, The Counter-Fabians. We have to be,
really?
We have to be counter-Fabians. We have to take a long-term view of advancing freedoms and advancing truths and countering them when we see them. Because when people see the truth, you cannot unsee it. It's there.
Agree.
And I think that it has to be done person by person. I mean, these plans can be foiled. All they need to do is
person by person. You're right. It's like you can tell me all my life that Mount Rushmore is a product of natural, miraculous water currents and wind erosion. And then one day I'm looking at it with my binoculars and I see a guy up there with a chisel. I'm like, oh, okay.
That right.
Explains it more. So once you see the guy with the chiseler, you
can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, listen, I want to thank you for calling. I really appreciate it. Call again.
Thank you, Charles.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Thanks a lot. All right. So you're welcome to join the program here. 617-396-4958 is the number. 617-396-4958. We're doing an open line segment right here live at YouTube and at TikTok. I'm doing this great thing every single day, Monday through Friday, from 12 noon to 1 or to 2 o'clock. That caller earlier sent me a note asking me if I'm a Nazi. Now, look, I don't mind discussing that, but just if you're going to call the program, please be polite and let's keep the conversation, based on, community standards. I mean, I don't want to see, I'm doing this thing similar to what I would do if I were on an old-fashioned radio station with a manager sitting there in the office next door. I want to maintain standards of decorum. So you could call up and say I'm a Nazi. That I have no problem with that, as long as we have a civil conversation about it. I'll answer that. But don't do it by starting out by commenting on what I look like, and don't be rude. Let's keep things civil here. 617-396-4958. 617-396-4958. Okay, so I started out with my premise, which is that as a Jew who had family members murdered in the Nazi Holocaust, I am sensitive about Nazism. I have written 3 books that address this question. One of those books in particular, which is called Was Hitler a Leftist?, gets into this very explicitly, in that I have made it my business over many decades to study the nature of Nazism. And I've discovered that Nazism is really no different than communism. They both are socialistic leftist systems. And that in that capacity, I believe that this election and the results are a shift toward Nazism. Now, when I say that, I'm not suggesting here that the Joe Biden administration is anti-Semitic. I don't think they are. It's not that. The enemy isn't the Jews. It could be anyone else. I mean, look, the enemy for the Bolsheviks was not the Jews. It was people who own property, the people who are not politically correct. I mean, Lenin in 1918, I'm sorry, he started to liquidate entire segments of the population of Russia based on their political views, whether they opposed his political agenda or any other arbitrary designation. He set up the Gulag system, which was emulated by the Nazis 20 years later, I may add. And so it's not, these kinds of philosophies don't necessarily, they all have their straw dog enemy. I think in the case of this particular form, besides the fact that the methodologies, the philosophy, the political approach is very socialistic and very national socialistic, I would add, the designated enemy is going to be the deplorables, headed up by President Donald Trump. Look, I'm afraid to even say the word Donald Trump. I'm afraid they'll censor me. He's been removed from Twitter. The President of the United States has been censored. Isn't that something that ought to concern people? I mean, I remember when I first heard about this possibly happening a couple of months ago. I mean, my reaction was, nah, they wouldn't do that. That couldn't happen, not in America. That this is my country. We're not that crazy. Even these left-wingers aren't that insane. And now we're hearing people on TikTok, by the way, getting to me and doing their little TikToks, which I think is a reflection of larger views. Trump should be prosecuted. He should be put in jail. His family should be prosecuted. Anyone ever associated with him should be prosecuted. Any politician who's ever defended him should be removed from office. And, we might sit here and say, nah, that's not going to happen. This is America. But based on what we're seeing right now this year, it damn well will happen. In fact, there's this attorney general in New York State who has dedicated her entire life to prosecuting Donald Trump. She wants to prosecute the Trump Foundation. Never mind the Clinton Foundation, which is about 10 times bigger and more corrupt. Never mind the Biden Foundation. Apparently, it was supposed to have been set up to fund cancer research in the name of his late son. Hasn't given a damn penny to cancer research. What they do and what the Clintons did is they use these things as a slush fund to pay off political allies and friends and put people on the payroll. And maybe the Trump Foundation might have been mildly guilty of this. I don't know. But the fact that this attorney general in New York State is solely focusing on Donald Trump, his family, his children, his business associates. She says she's got over 50 indictments ready to roll after Biden's in office. I mean, this is what we're looking at in this country. And when they go after Trump, they're going after you and me. They're going after, this is the Tsar Nicholas II solution, right? To use another historic analogy. Tsar Nicholas II was deposed when the Bolsheviks took over Russia. I think it was several months later, while he was under house arrest, that he and his entire family, including their maidservants and their dogs and their pets, were machine gunned to death. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go that far, but that is what communists do, isn't it? It's what Adolf Hitler did. About a year after he was in power, he launched what was called the Night of the Long Knives. Hello, you're on the air. Thanks for joining me. Hi, Phoebe. How are you?
Good. How are you? I see you getting more callers.
I am. The show's starting to pick up. Thank you. Hopefully they'll keep me on the air.
That's wonderful. Charles, on the topic of Adolf Hitler, and of course Adolf Hitler was a monster to both Jews and non-Jews alike. On the topic of Adolf Hitler, and I know discussing him is a very complex topic. This is in trying to understand how this man came into power. Wouldn't it be like, how should I say? I'm trying to gather my words here. Wasn't he a creation of the British Empire, Adolf Hitler?
I don't know. I mean, there are all kinds of theories about that. I don't think, I would tend to think not. I mean, he certainly had his allies in the kind of the finance world. I mean, there's a pretty good book about this by Hoover Institute fellow Anthony Sutton called Wall Street and the Nazis. I think that he was viewed as somewhat of an establishment figure. He was supported by Stalin, who sent out directives to the Communist Party in Germany to vote for Hitler, and they did. There were a lot of factors that wanted to put Hitler in power. I don't think that therefore meant that they were necessarily anti-Semitic or that they thought that there would be a Holocaust or even a world war. I think it had more, because we could look at history in hindsight. I think it had more to do with the fact they viewed him as a socialist and as someone who would centralize power in Germany and begin the process of moving Germany to the left. So there's a lot of complex reasons why he received initial support. But what's interesting to me is that within 3 weeks of his coming to power, and he was elected, by the way, you had the Reichstag fire, which was the burning of the German Parliament building and the ending.
And a lot of people are equating that thing that happened last week to that event that you just mentioned.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing, and I've been doing it. It reminds me of that. What happened is, I mean, it's not as bad. The Capitol building was not burned. In fact, the people that breached the Capitol building, other than maybe breaking a few windows, they were quite respectful. Maybe that's why it wasn't necessarily Antifa, because Antifa probably would have burned the place down. But, they just walked through the halls. I mean, they were at least not destroying property for the most part. I'm not saying perfectly, but, either way, the event is being used in a way that is similar to the way the Nazis used the Reichstag fire. They used the Reichstag fire to suspend the German Constitution, and that set the ball rolling toward complete total power and World War II and the Holocaust. Now, I'm not saying that we're heading in that direction specifically. Every nation has a different variation, but I think it is safe to say that that event here, the breaching of the U.S. Capitol, is being used. It's being used to impeach Donald Trump on lies. He didn't incite this. He didn't. They're talking this bizarre conspiracy theory. Oh, it's an insurrection. It's kind of like the whole ridiculous Mueller thing. I mean, Donald Trump is spying for the Russians. That's what that was all about. That went on for 3 years. Now or his phone call to the Ukraine asking that they investigate Hunter Biden's shady deal with Burisma Oil, which, by the way, now we know was true. So, I mean, he's been vindicated on that one. Now they're talking about, he's causing an insurrection. These are lies. And the fact that they get away with it because because they control such a large portion of the high ground of communication is concerning. It's fascist. Trump knew it was going to be set up, so he said special forces. We don't know what happened there. Look, I tend to think that it looked very convenient to me that the minute that the U.S. House and Senate began to debate the charges of voter, quote, irregularities, and when they'd reached Arizona, and you had a senator and a rep stand up and challenge that race, saying that it was illegally done in Arizona. And then you had the people from Arizona, their representative, stand up, and I watched this, and brilliantly start to lay out the evidence of this kind of corruption in that state. It was just as that was happening, just as that was unfolding, that all of a sudden everything was shut down. And that
yes, that moment, Charles. Sorry to interrupt,
no,
but it was at
okay.
that moment that the Congress started to get stormed by that mob. It was during
exactly.
the Arizona thing.
Exactly. So you have to ask who benefits.
That's not an accident to me. That's not an accident at all. I think that
it's a strange coincidence. I mean, you know, it's the Latin saying "cui bono," who benefits, and who benefited was that we never got to hear a full public rendering of this evidence, so we'll never really know. I mean, we never got to hear it in the judiciary because they denied all of these cases, including the Supreme Court. So we were hoping that we could finally hear it all laid out last Wednesday in Congress with both houses in session, with the vice president presiding, with the media having to cover it. They would finally have a chance to lay it out, and the whole thing ended up strangely being suspended. So we never really got to it, did we? What happened is instead they suspended the Congress. There was no debate. There was supposed to be 7 debates for 7 states that were challenged. Instead, I think they might have done a cursory debate for Pennsylvania at like 12 o'clock at night. And then they just gavelled the whole thing through. It's very troubling. It's very fascistic, in my opinion. There was never an honest debate about this. We never got to hear the evidence presented. So therefore, they can now lie and say, oh, there was no evidence. This is, and not only that, but they can destroy those who challenge that and attack us.
And on the subject of Hitler again, Charles.
Yes.
The reason why I'm making the connection between Hitler and the British Empire is because Cecil Rhodes, who was one of the darlings of the British Empire, had certain philosophies that intertwined with Hitler's philosophies, like the philosophy of the Superman or the master race. That leads back to Cecil Rhodes.
Well, I mean, I think philosophically there are similarities. I mean, look, this was a very popular view amongst the international elite before World War II. It was cleaned up after World War II. We could take a look at the philosophy of Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy, who had actually invented the word Aryan, and who talked about, you know, superior races, and it goes back to Darwin, actually. You know, if you want to talk about British ideas of superior races, I mean, what do you think the theory of evolution is? Some people are more evolved than others, and eventually, through breeding, we're going to have a superior, new, more evolved species. That's what the whole theory is based on, and it was entirely racist. I've actually written a book about this too, called The Apostles of Evolution. Anyways, listen, Phoebe, thanks so much as always. I really appreciate you joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Charles.
Have a good one. All right, so you're welcome to join me in this segment of the program. I'm doing an open lines program today. I don't really have any guests scheduled, so we're just it's just me and you against the world. 617-396-4958. 617-396-4958. What is on your mind, eh? We could talk about these or any other topics. Gee, the calls are coming in fast and furious. Hello, you're on the air. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Charles. This is Jen Sharf, Duvid's streaming partner. Nice to meet you finally.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining me. I really love having Duvid on every Thursday.
Isn't he great?
Oh, yeah.
I love your show together.
Thank you.
I always tune in.
Thank you. So
I just wanted a quick follow-up question to what you were just talking about with Madame Blavatsky and the Aryan thing, because I'd never heard that. I'd heard of Max Muller, but I'd never seen anything that she wrote specifically. Did you say you covered that in your book?
Yeah, she wrote a book, I believe, and again, I'm kind of going on memory here. I wrote that book years ago, but she wrote a book called Isis Unveiled that's very popular in occult circles, and that she, along with she has some partners, I think Ossoff or something, they created the Theosophical Society in New York, of all places, in I think the 1890s, and that this was sort of the religion, if you will, of Nazism. And in fact, it's been said that Adolf Hitler kept a copy of her book on his bedside. And
just terrible. I'm so glad you're bringing attention to this really what can only be described as degenerative phenomenon that doesn't really make anyone better for believing in it. So thank you so much. My actual question was about Trump's order that went out. It's an executive order on addressing the threat from securities investments that finance communist Chinese military companies. Have you heard about this?
I didn't really look into it. I heard it just before I actually got on the air today, but yes, I mean, there's rumors that he signed some kind of an executive order on insurrection also, and I have not seen that, so I'm not going to really be able to comment on it.
Oh, I guess I was just interested on your take, because it looks like they are moving to delist at least 3 Chinese companies from the New York Stock Exchange. And I guess I was just wondering if you thought this was going to, or where you thought this was going to go. But if you're just hearing about it now, right. That's okay.
No, it's a little late in the day to do it, but the fact of the matter is that Biden is going to be very friendly with China. I mean, at least I think he will be. I mean, after all, I mean, they invest many millions of dollars into his family. I think that's public record that Hunter Biden had all, he was, when Biden would travel, it was like Hillary did this too. Whenever they would travel, they would bring people around with them who would then make deals in their wake. And, that I think that there's some corruption in that scale, on that score with Biden. And I think that this is a very challenging situation. We're going to have China basically in the catbird seat. They did not like Trump. He was one of the few people that stood up to Chinese trade practices and Chinese military aggression, and now with Trump gone, it's sad and it's scary. I mean, in the broad sense, we are losing a great opportunity in this country. We're basically returning power to the international oligarchs, the same people who had consolidated their power before Trump. We're going back to that. We're sliding back away from everything that Trump stood for, which was returning power to the sovereign people. We're giving the power back to the oligarchs and to the internationalists who don't care about this country and who don't care about our sovereignty and who certainly are not interested in making the country great. And instead, they want to turn our country into a satrap for the world. Anyway, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too. 617-396-4958 is the number. 617-396-4958. You're welcome to discuss any issue that's on your mind, as long as you stay within the general bounds of community standards here. I'm trying to conduct this show like I would a radio show. I feel like, geez, I mean, even talking about these things, it's like I feel like I don't know which landmine I'm going to step on that's going to blow everything up. You can't know. I mean, when you have the kind of censorship that we're now seeing, it's like you don't know what I mean, you're just in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh boy, I mean, should I say this? Or, I don't know. It's like, it's just, I mean, and I feel like I try to maintain high standards. And again, I started the program by saying that as a Jew who's had members of my family murdered by the Nazis, I feel that I have the right to express, as do any American, my opinion with regard to what I see as encroaching Nazism. Very true. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. I'm getting TikTok comments here. 617-396-4958. You're welcome to join by phone. I am able to take phone calls on this show, which is a fantastic thing. I've already gotten many today. This is amazing. This is like an old-fashioned radio talk show. And just as a program note, I should mention that I go live, or my goal is to go live, assuming I still have a platform, Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 p.m., 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, to 1 p.m. Or if I'm getting a lot of calls, I'll stay on longer. And that the program is live on both YouTube and TikTok. It also archives on YouTube if you want to watch it afterwards. Please subscribe to my YouTube station, by the way. I'd appreciate that. And also my TikTok. All right, we've got yet another call. Sorry about that. Please keep calling. I'm a little ham-handed when it comes to the technology here, so please call back. I just clicked something that I was not supposed to click. Let's see. Oh my God, I have to start. Let me just start all over. Sorry about that, everybody. I just, when it comes to technology, I am just ham-handed. So I'm going to go back to Skype and see if I can get everything running here. 617-396-4958 is the number if you'd like to join the program. All right, it looks like I'm back. Let's see, let me just scroll this way and then scroll that way and see if I can get my thing functioning again. 617-396-4958 is the number. You're welcome to join the program. Anyway, so it's live Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do take phone calls. I do take tweets from, or I get comments from TikTok. I'm live on both YouTube and TikTok. The program archives on YouTube and on Minds and Rumble. So here we go. All right. Hello, you're on the air. Thanks for joining me.
Charles Shulam, David here.
Hi, David.
Told me she called, and I wanted to call you Friday, but I got busy, and just wanted to wish you success in your show, and saying I think you're doing the right thing by doing the call-in and just doing the 2 hours every day, even though it might be difficult to build up in the beginning. So I thought I'd call in.
No, I appreciate it. In fact, today I've gotten, I think, almost a half a dozen phone calls. So
great.
This is what I want to do. I'm literally trying to recreate an old-fashioned radio program like you do on a station, where I can, and I can. It's fantastic. I can get calls. Anyone can call from anywhere in the country, for that matter, anywhere in the world, by just simply calling up, and I'll put you on the air as long as you keep community standards. And
I think Alan Dershowitz probably takes pre-recorded. I don't think his calls are live. I think he takes the calls.
Does he?
And records the calls and plays them, because there's no interaction or feedback. But yeah, what you're doing is probably better than that.
Well, there's a risk involved in that somebody might come on and start to use the obscenities. I mean, I can't screen anyone, so I have to have my finger ready to cut someone off if they do that. I don't want to have anyone. Again, this is a community program, and I want to try to maintain standards. But I'm hoping I've got some great calls today. Some real good, thoughtful. People, I want to build up a real online community where we can all kind of, go deep and dig into issues and think about things.
Me and Jennifer are speaking today in Jerusalem in 30 minutes about reincarnation and the heart problem of consciousness. And I saw she asked you about Madame Blavatsky, and I have all their books. I mean, I know a lot about that,
mm-hmm.
And even the Nazis. I've been studying that. I've been trying to get Trey Mandi wrote a book, Hitler, Krishna, Buddha, or something like that, and there's overwhelming evidence that Hitler and Himmler were basically Hindus, and that's my understanding. I would say theologically the Nazis probably are best classified as Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
And even we're talking about reincarnation, that your reincarnation fits. So that might be an interesting topic to talk about, kind of the Eastern influence on.
Very interesting. A good guy on that is he's a Professor Peter Levenda. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's hard to reach. I interviewed him years ago, and he won't. I don't think he does interviews anymore. I don't know why, but there's a lot of research on this. I mean, Blavatsky's successor, Alice Bailey, wrote. She basically established what's called the Lucifer Trust, that eventually changed its name to the Lucis Trust. And they're still around. You can look up Lucis Trust. They're very connected to the United Nations. I think that they're involved with the United Nations Meditation Room. And it's sort of continuing on with her theories and her philosophy. It's very occult oriented. So, but Druvid, so where can people hear your appearance in Jerusalem? Let my viewers know.
It'll be live on Root and Branch, and I think today it's going to be live on Facebook also. So I'm not sure if you're live yet on Facebook, but Jennifer is doing the tech for them. So my Facebook page or her Facebook page, and the Root and Branch, and then this other streamer, Les Glassman, usually records it and puts up his own copy. And Aryan invasion theory is one of her main topics of debate, and saying that Aryan invasion theory is basically false, even though it's still the mainstream thing taught in all institutes. If you look up the history of India in any elite institute, you'll find Aryan invasion theory, even though it's largely been discredited. I don't know if you ever.
I'm not familiar with that, but I'll look into it. By the way, as a technical question, I'm doing the show live on YouTube and TikTok. Can I also do it simultaneously live on Facebook?
You should be able to, but you might need proprietary software. So if you're doing Zoom and you have it hooked up, sometimes your service like Zoom offers you a simple, just hit a button and it goes live to all the platforms that you've already filled in the information. Otherwise, you have to come around to a certain level of computer programming, or sometimes they have like StreamYards or these third-party software, not StreamYards, Streamlab, and other third-party software that will do it for you, and you may have to pay them or they may stamp it for them, but just a third-party software that you enter all the information and then, in one click is hit go live, and it'll feed it to other. And these things are changing, probably especially with Trump and what's happening now with the social media purge.
Right.
There's constantly new regulation, new servers. So I'll have to look into that. I mean, because I'm not doing it like that. But your program, you should.
No, I know it because I'm always trying to find new ways to expand. I also know that there's this thing called Restream, which is a subscription, but what it does is it allows you to, but they have to use the OBS system, which I don't like. It's too complicated. I like the Zoom. I think that's the best system I've found. But I think that maybe there's technology where I can go live from Zoom to both YouTube and Facebook. I know you can choose one or the other, but there might be a way to do that. So anyway, but I'll look into that also.
We're going to try that today, so
okay.
We'll figure that out. Maybe.
Let me know.
And actually, me and Jennifer are thinking of even opening up a business doing that, in the like IT business where we're doing the tech work for streamers. So even Jennifer from another country could probably remotely on a offline conference call walk you through how to do that. But what, at your point, you're probably paying. I mean, you're paying Zoom. You're not just using.
Yeah, it's a subscription
membership.
Yeah,
and it's possible that you could pay them more money, and they make things easier for you. Or as I said, something like Streamlab. I'd have to look into it. That there's these other servers that you have to pay for, and they make it very simple for you to do.
And by the way, I should give a little program note here. On Thursday, I have Roger Perlman coming on, who is a.
Oh yeah, he reached out to Jennifer.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm happy to.
Yeah, in fact, I'm hoping that
with him.
We're going to do a three-way. I was going to talk to you about that because I've invited him on, and he's got research about science and the Torah, which is, I think, pretty cutting edge and interesting.
He's got a 3-volume book series that he's already written and is about to come out. On one is similar to yours, where he tries to break Judaism into axioms of basic principles and say that all of Judaism could be derived from 6 principles, like including the creation ex nihilo. But it's somewhat similar to the concept of your book. Another thing he does is try to write like Josephus, or in Hebrew they call Seder Adoros, which is the order of generations, which is a complete history of the world from creation till today from a biblical perspective. And then you've got another book that involves more physics and Big Bang and cosmology and biblical creation. And I actually skimmed through all 1,000 pages of 3 of his books. He was on Week in Review. So,
that's amazing.
And he's Jennifer's contact. He found Jennifer likes these physics shows like Eric Weinstein and Lex Friedman and various straight physics, who a lot of them happen to be Jews, like Eric Weinstein and Lex Friedman. But she found Roger in the chat on one of those shows, and she was willing to take his ideas more seriously than the physicist. So very interesting, and so that should be good. In fact, I mentioned you to him when he came on the show. I was like,
excellent.
I was happy to help him out. Saying good work writing your book, or wish you success. And I mentioned like you, Root and Branch, maybe like Halsey, Luke, or just the type names I could mention that might give him airtime. So I appreciate you doing that.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm happy to share the weekly show, or if you do it separately.
No, I'd like to do it as a 3-way. So no, I'm looking forward to that this Thursday.
Okay, great.
All right, David. Best of luck on your Root and Branch in Jerusalem. I'll be watching for it on your Facebook page. That's David on Facebook.
Well, on my legal name, David Kelton, and I usually share the Facebook. I'll put it on my YouTube also. But when I argue with anti-Semites or just put out generic stuff, usually I don't use my legal name. But this will be under.
I understand. Yeah. I mean, I don't use my legal name either. All right, David. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Blessing, shalom.
All right. Okay, so we have time for perhaps one more call, maybe 2 more calls. You're welcome to join the program. 617-396-4958. That number again is 617-396-4958. I have a TikTok comment here that says that I'm an example of why the electorate needs to be more educated. I don't know about that. I mean, whose education are we talking about here? I don't know. I think that I trust that the American people and that human beings generally are perfectly capable of educating themselves. I don't know if do you mean maybe re-education perhaps? Let's see. We don't hate Trump. We hate what he has and is doing. Well, what do you have in mind? What do you hate that Trump is doing? Call up. You're welcome to talk. We could talk about that. 617-396-4958 is the number. You want to take me on? That's fine. All views are welcome on this program. As long as I say, you keep within the bounds of community standards, you shall be heard. You shall be heard on this program, and your opinions will be well aired. You will be you'll have an opportunity to develop those opinions, and it will be archived forever on about 12 different venues. Yep, we are getting another call. How do you like that? Let me see if I can get to that. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
What's on your mind?
I'm joining your show. I'm just a American citizen that feels like things is way out of hand, that Trump was never gave a fair chance, and because he was stepping on their toes trying to clean up America and give America back to the people and not the politicians, that this is what they're doing to him.
I could not agree with you more. You've stated that in a nice, clear way. That is exactly what this is. He tried to return power to the people. You have to read Trump's inaugural address. It is one of the most important documents, the most brilliant documents ever written in American history. I think it should be taught to every school child, should memorize it. It's fantastic. And he does lay that out. I mean, he didn't have to do this. He wasn't
Not at all.
He wasn't ambitious for power. Trump is someone who had everything you could want in life. He's rich, he's famous, he's got a great family. You know, I mean, he didn't need this. He's lost money from being president.
Yes,
he did it because he wants to give something back to this country.
He didn't need any of this. He had the money. He had everything he needed. He's seen a need where the American people was being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
The poor people was getting poorer. The richer are getting richer. And this is the thing. America was built off the backbones of poor working Americans, where they could have their rich lifestyle. And then hopefully, if you worked hard enough, there was always a way that you might could come out on top. But the way they're wanting it now is that nobody can have it except for the very ones at the top. And every time they take our one right away, even if it doesn't affect you, they're taking rights away that will affect somebody. And that's what America is about.
Absolutely. If you stand by and they take your rights away, then someone else's, then they're going to eventually come for yours, because then we no longer have rights coming from God. Instead, we have rights granted by the state. And the whole philosophy of our American government is that rights come from the Creator, as Jefferson said, and that the Creator endows us with rights, certain inalienable rights, not the state. The government doesn't decide what our rights are. The government is there to protect our God-given rights. And most Americans have no idea what we're talking about. It's sad and it's scary.
It is very scary to see how close we are to having our rights taken away and to be a communist country.
Yes.
And that's why everybody wants to come to America. It's because we're not a communist country. We're here where everybody can have a chance to be free and be able to make the best that they can out of their life.
That's right.
It's very hard to see this happening. I am a 60-year-old woman that has worked all her life and raised a God-fearing family, and this is not what I want for my children or my grandchildren to have to live with.
No, it's very discouraging, but be optimistic, be patient. The Trump leadership has released and unleashed a genuinely patriotic movement, unlike anything that I've ever seen. And I think that it's not going to go away anytime soon. There'll be ways that we'll find to advance it. Anyway, thanks so much. Please call again. Really appreciate the call.
Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure. Okay, and I think we may have time for one more call. What the heck? 617-396-4958. I'm finally learning how to use the switchboard here. 617-396-4958. It's not a patriotic movement. I'm getting these TikToks. Really? How would you define a patriotic movement then? Call in. Speak to me. Let's hear it. Defend that. 617-396-4958. Here we go. Yep, you're welcome to call. Looks like somebody hung up. Anyway, call back. You're welcome to join me. 617-396-4958. Anyway, I started the program, and I'll kind of maybe end it at this point as well, by making the comparison between the reaction to the breaching of the U.S. Capitol to the reaction to the Reichstag fire in Nazi Germany. A delusional and radicalized propagandized movement. Which movement are we talking about? The patriotic movement or the goose steppers who are supporting Biden? I don't know. Call in and let's challenge me on that one. You're all invaded the Capitol. You're all traitors. First of all, I don't think anybody is saying it's good that people breach the Capitol building. this, I think it's convenient, as I mentioned earlier, that this happened just at the moment that the joint session of Congress was hearing evidence of voter irregularities from the state of Arizona. We'll never get to that now. You said Trump is patriotic movement. I disagree. Okay. Why? Why don't you join me live? You want, put as it were, put your money where your mouth is, call in. I still have time to take one more call at least. 617-396-4958. I challenge all of you TikTokers who are following the program. Pick up the phone and call. This is a live program and I can take calls. We can talk about it. 617-396-4958. Anyhow, or as my late grandmother used to say, anyhow, it's toward the end of the program. So I think that I'm going to thank you for watching. I shall return, God willing, tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I am doing this great thing of mine. It's a joy to me, God willing, as long as YouTube and TikTok permits it. Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 1 p.m., maybe a little beyond. I am taking calls. This is a live program. The archive will be on YouTube if you want to watch later. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd appreciate that. And my TikTok. The program is also archived on Minds and on Rumble and on Podomatic, where it's heard as an audio, on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, and a whole list of others. So I expect to be completing my book. I am writing a quick novella, if you will, a pamphlet on my take on the election and what it's going to result in. In fact, one of the things I do for a living is I write, and in some cases I ghostwrite. Well, in this case, I'm signing it. And I'll hopefully have that available by the end of this week. And when it is, I'll let you know. It'll be on Amazon. I appreciate what you're trying to do, even though I totally disagree. Thank you. Thank you very much. Look, we don't have to agree. I mean, I don't expect it. I mean, my own family doesn't agree with me. That's perfectly okay. Is this going to happen, or are we all crazy now? It was when Pence said he wasn't going to break the Constitution that they stormed to get him. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what caused that. I mean, I think it was just a spontaneous action that shouldn't have happened. I mean, we should note that right now, as I speak, you've got Nazi Antifa thugs roaming around in Midtown Manhattan, where they roughed up a young woman reporter from a conservative station. I mean, if that is an insurrection, I don't know what is. Anyway, so on that note, I shall thank you for joining me today. Charles Moskowitz. By the way, you can check out my books. They're available at Amazon Books. Just put my name in the server, Charles Moskowitz, Moscow, like as in the city, WITZ. And you shall see them all come up. I've written over 50.